Base is dropped on a new week of Soccer's morning show. Soccer down here. John here, you there. Pretty stacked this morning. We do have some news to get into from yesterday. We've got that. And we have it's news in both Major League Soccer. We do have some news this morning from our friends at Real Madrid and the Club World Cup. So we'll be getting into that. We'll be drifting in and out of the news of the morning all the way through the show. Yeah, we are going to talk about that match. And as it was phrased on the 280-character app, yeah, that match. Bart Keeler, we've slid Bart up this morning because of that match. And the tiki torches and the pitchforks that I'm sure are out. We'll get into that with Bart. We'll go everything. We'll walk you through it. Line up, match up. We've got the opening statement from Greg Berhalter from after the match. So we'll walk through the whole thing with you. Bart's going to join us about 9:15 at Bartimus Prime 19 on the Soccer for US POD. He'll walk us through it as well. And there's another matchup, another friendly coming up in the midweek. So how do you turn things around from there? So that's what Bart will be getting into this morning. 10 o'clock, because we slid Bart up, gives us the opportunity to hopefully reconnect with Ryan Marcano and get our TST update, because Nani is in the final. That voice of calm known as Nani. Apparently he's in the final, but we get to kind of find out about the experience with Ryan Marcano, and I think Ryan's bringing guests. So we'll have that at 10 o'clock and go through once again all the other news that we might have missed during the day, the news that happens while we're on the air, those kinds of things. And all the injury updates. Remember, we're getting ready for the Euros coming up this weekend. Friday, Lee and White. For those of you that follow SDH on social media, we're going to be there from 3 to 7. And saying hi to everybody as we get ready for the Euros. It gives me an excuse to wear my Andorra national jersey. I don't have any San Marino. I don't have a San Marino jersey yet. I got to work on that. But I get to wear my Andorra jersey Friday, 3 and 7. Lee and White will be there over in the West End, and we will celebrate the beginning of the Euros with you. So that's what's on tap there. Guests this week, obviously, will be checking in on our regular cast of folks. Tyler Pilgrim, hopefully Dylan Butler joining us on Wednesday. Nico Moreno joining us Thursday. Getting you ready for the weekend on Friday. Because like I said, it's Euros and it's back to Major League Soccer. So that means that we're going to try and track down our buddy Glenn Davis and find out what's going on with Houston Dynamo as the Dynamo come into town. And it's the beginning of the second tour of the Rob Valentino administration. So we'll see what the anticipation is there with this round of schedule compression with Rob starting off this weekend with all the absences and all of the schedule compression and folks possibly not playing matches anymore because they might be going other places. So as that story continues to develop, we'll let you know about all of that stuff. So very, very busy week here. Thanks for coming on with us, and thanks for hanging out with us as you always do every single day. And so it's morning. Yeah, and Monaco, do they even have a team even? Yeah, we got to get into what's going on with Everton because apparently there's a line of suitors, and some have Saudi backing. Some are local dudes that are that have already fronted money that want in on a deal. Some of it is Dell Capital under a different name. And so there's all of that as well when it comes to Everton, because our buddies at 777, they are no longer in consideration for the purchase of Everton. So there's a lot of news to get into this morning. Like I said, we'll weave it in and out of everything that we have going on. FC Dallas fired Nico Estevez. You want to talk about a news dump? FC Dallas fires Nico Estevez on the weekend. So FC Dallas is now looking for a new head coach. We'll get into that. And the news this morning is about our friends at Real Madrid. And it is apparent that Carlo Ancelotti is not a fan of the current setup when it comes to the schedule and invites to Club World Cup from our friends at Agence France Presse while we were sleeping or while we were just waking up. Real Madrid coach Carlo Ancelotti said in an Italian newspaper interview the newly crowned European champs will refuse to play in the expanded Club World Cup. Ancelotti told Il Giornale, players and clubs will not participate in that tournament. A single Real Madrid match is worth 20 million euro, and FIFA wants to give us this amount for the entire cup. So no. Like us, other clubs will refuse the invitation. The expanded 32-team Club World Cup proposed to take place this summer, adding to an already congested calendar for players. England's PFA has warned FIFA players could go on strike. So the Club World Cup might be in a and they might have to empty out the wallet just a little more than they normally would. So if you got a team already who's sitting there going like, nah, not interested. So there's Carlo Ancelotti and Real Madrid. They're already sending that shot across the bow, and it ain't looking good. But of course, we all know what might happen toward the end of things. As you get closer and closer, folks might sit there and say, "Well, what if we give you this? What about this? How about this?" And then, okay, Uncle Dave's Wild Ride. Longtime listener, first time Twitchner. Welcome, Uncle Dave's Wild Ride. Hopefully that the experience will be what it always is when you listen and when you watch. Now that you're twitching, if that's the phrase, we'll go ahead and do that. Since you're twitching with us, Mazel Tov. Yes, Tom. Thank you. You've avoided the group of shysters, as Tom refers to them, as 777. Doug, TST. He said it was a great experience. And so I think we're finally going to be able to get the folks to catch up with and find out all about TST coming up in hour number 2. That's the plan. We've sent out the invite. We've had the conversations. So I think we're there. We gave Abe Gordon the morning off because of Atlanta United not having anything going on on the weekend, and so Abe gets to pay attention to Chipper and what Chipper wants to do at 9:30. And Dell kind of teasing everything. Watched Pasha Luxury, and they were good. So if things work out and the communication, if I have properly communicated when I'd like for them to come on, we might be getting a Pasha Luxury update. And just finally, as a part of everything going on with TST coming up in hour number 2. So that's the plan anyway. Once again, thanks to everybody for coming on and hanging out this morning. Morning, Dell. Morning, Tom. Morning, Uncle Dave. And thanks for dropping by more than anything else, especially on Mondays where things are all over the place. According to our friends at The Athletic, Newcastle are in talks with Burnley over a potential deal to sign James Trafford, believed to be between 15 and 18 million pounds. And Leicester apparently is going to be making Graham Potter their first choice to take over as manager. So there's all of that. All right. So we slid Bart forward because of that match. That match that was held at whatever they call the place now. I've just always referred to it as Raljon, Maryland, because it was named after the city at the time by Jack Kent Cooke was named after his 2 kids. When they built the stadium and everything and had everything out in the suburbs, Raljon, Maryland. I guess I don't know if that's a nickname or if that's official because it was referred to as Landover. That just reminds me of Cap Center. But because of what happened in that match this weekend, what we've decided to do is slide Bart forward because it was that match and that happened. So here we go. Beat 2, 3, 4. So have you recovered from that match, Bart?
Well, the news that Graham Potter might be going somewhere else makes me sad because why can't he just come stateside and take over this team?
All right. What I wanted to do is walk everybody through.
No, John, I haven't recovered mentally or emotionally. Dell, I did not attend, Dell.
No, but what I wanted.
No, I did not attend that match. thankfully.
Yeah, I wanted to walk everybody through it. And for those that might have just, kind of seen bits and pieces, and found out, oh, there was a match. And then the match happened. So it was a 5-1 final in front of 55,494 in Maryland, suburban Washington, D.C. U.S. concedes 5 goals for the first time in 15 years. And you had a goal in the 6th that was not U.S. You had a goal in the 19th from Rafael Santos Burre that was not U.S. It was 2-0 at the break. Then Timothy Weah scores. Actually, tell you what, let's stop there. 2-0 at the break. What's going through your mind with the U.S. down 2-0? As Bart is doing Irish goodbyes on Monday morning. I guess Bart was that fed up with the whole thing. He was that fed up. Nothing like a Monday to have transmission issues. You there, bud?
I think so.
Yeah, you're there. You're here. I got you. 2-0 at the break. You score. 2 goals are surrendered in the first 20 minutes. I want to walk everybody through this. What's going through your mind at the breakdown 2-0?
I think, honestly, the first half I don't think was that bad. You had 2 goals scored because of defensive lapses. You were relatively competent in things you wanted to do. I mean, I know I hate to say that, hey, well, we were winning the possession battle because it doesn't mean anything, but you were controlling your own ability to hold on to the ball. You were making progress into the final third. You just weren't finding the final pass. And the goals that Columbia scored, one was a weird, why are you making that challenge, Jedi Robinson, to give the ball directly to a Colombian player. And then a corner kick that no one clears, and you get an overhead bicycle kick that finds its way through Matt Turner, which, well, I'm sure we'll talk about Matt Turner. If you want to blame a goalkeeper for not saving a bicycle kick, then go play goalkeeper and see how fun it is.
Because it also looked like it got partially deflected too.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of those things where, like, yes, he probably should have saved it. I agree. It's a save that you would like for your keeper to make. But if you are a goalkeeper in that situation, you don't know where that ball is going because you don't have a good frame of reference to judge where it's coming off your foot. So regardless, it was a lot of errors, and Matt Turner could have done better. So could about 5 other defenders on that play. But we're going to blame the goalkeeper because we can't blame, defenders who can't clear a ball, apparently. But no, I don't think the first half was that bad. And I don't think the first really, 55, 60 minutes were that bad. It got bad real quick, though. And that was the concern.
You score in the 58th to make it 2-1, and then obviously we can talk about momentum and 2-0, most dangerous lead in soccer, all those kinds of things. Then it was for those that didn't watch, you'll see 3 goals in 11 minutes. Rio scores in the 77th. Carrascal scores in the 85th. Luis Sinistera scores in the 88th. And there was some passing that was made up the middle of the park in those situations that you're kind of sitting there going, okay, there's a lot of space between dudes. You've either got to put a lot of juice on it in between A to B, or not do those passes in the first place.
Yep.
3 goals in 11 minutes, and everything just went boom.
You want to see my mug for the day, John?
Sure, I do, actually. Yes, I do. I'm completely and totally remiss in not Les Miserables. Wow, he went irony this morning.
1, new mug. Got it last week. Went to go see Les Mis at the Fox. That was great. 2, it fits the theme of my soccer teams right now.
Okay.
Yeah, John, I think the problem was, if you ever listen to the Total Soccer Show, Taylor Rockwell has what he calls quicksand games, and I know we talked about this when we talk about the replacements, and it did feel a little bit like a quicksand game where you just started making too many mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Greg Berhalter, somehow the players are the only people who messed up that game. Not Greg, who's had this team for 6 years and has implemented a system that forces players to take about 27 touches before they make a decision. It's the players' fault. And the players did not play well. They did not execute anything, let alone basic passing, as you mentioned. CCV comes on to the game after Tim Ream, who didn't play very well. And his first touch wasn't really a touch. It was a ball that he let roll underneath his foot. And that kind of exemplified the rest of that match. It's just error after mistake after mistake. And that is concerning. The message from the team seemed to be that they were not up for the game. And while I understand that it is a friendly, Columbia certainly didn't see this as some training exercise. And if you're looking at this as some sort of glorified training exercise, that is concerning. And that's where I do blame Greg for not setting the tone and making the team aware that this is an opportunity for this team to not just get better, right? But also to understand and play at the intensity that Copa America has played at. And that's the thing is, like, if you think that Colombia was intense during a friendly, wait till there's a damn continental trophy on the line. I mean, that's the naivety that this team still has. And people want to call this team young, and it's somewhat young, but most of these guys went to the 2022 World Cup. None of these people are out on the field are inexperienced international soccer players. And you have a coach who's been on charge since 2019 and still can't get this team to perform at a level higher than, the best in CONCACAF, which is a trash federation that we get hyped up because we keep playing these damn Nations League tournaments, because CONCACAF is a greedy organization who doesn't know how to, help their teams actually improve. And now you're stuck with a team that is unprepared for one of the, if not the most intense competition they're going to have ever. It's not a skill issue. I mean, I think a lot of people are like, oh, we're just not good. That's bogus. I'm sorry. Like, all of our players are highly skilled, highly trained professionals. Colombia are great players as well. But when it comes down to it, you did not match the intensity. You didn't match the mindset. And that, to me, is a problem with leadership on this team. So who's the ultimate leader of the team, of the program? It's Greg Berhalter, and that's his job to get this team in the mindset to go play a game like this.
20-19. Here's Greg Berhalter after the match, thanks to our friends at U.S. Soccer.
Really disappointed, obviously, with the result. We're not framing it as a lesson learned. We're actually framing it as a wake-up call. Really poor performance against a top team. And I think if you give a team like that the opportunities that we gave them, you're going to have no chance to win. It's never going to happen. And, that's what's really disappointing about the game. I think the first half, you look at the 2 goals, maybe they had 2.5 chances in the first half, scored 2 goals. And then, from the 75th minute on, it was, I think, a lack of respect for our opponent, the game of soccer, what we were doing. And,
So there you go. And to be fair to Greg, that first half, you're right. They didn't have that many chances. We had a couple chances that we didn't convert. And that's what happens. Sorry to lump on to the miserableness, but we've talked about this a lot with Atlanta United, where you can talk to me all you want until you're blue in the face about possession and XG and all these things. But if the ball doesn't go in the back of the net, what the hell does it matter? And that kind of was the way the first half went, was, well, Colombia had 2 chances because we gave them to them and they converted, and we did not. And this team does continue to struggle to create good, clear-cut chances. They certainly struggle to create enough chances to, score more than 1 goal. And that is a concern overall. But in this game specifically, it was just, you as a team, you as an individual messed up a lot. And when you mess up that much against a Colombia team that's very talented, you are going to be hurting afterward.
None of the USA 10 attempts at goal required a save. And we mentioned the giveaways, especially late. Colombia last scored as many goals in a 5-0 home win over Bolivia back in 2013. What I always like to do is have the hair stand up on the back of your neck by giving you the ratings from our friends at Soccer America. And Matt Turner got a 4.
I mean, you let 4 goals or 5 goals in, you're not going to get a high rating as a goalkeeper.
True. That's absolutely
true. I mean, you can blame all the defenders you want, but you still let in 5 goals. It's not going to be good.
Defenders starting lineup: Joe Scally, Tim Ream, Chris Richards, Anthony Robinson. Together, the ratings for the 4 of them were a total of 12.
So FOTMob has Tim Ream at a 6.4, and I want to know how they're rating him that, because he was atrocious today. Not only was he giving the ball away a lot, he had lacked the speed to be able to really make up for his errors. I do not want to see Tim Ream starting for this team again. I'm really sorry. He is a great guy. I'm sure he's a good veteran, locker room presence, whatever you want to say. But unfortunately, the international game, that pace of play, seems to have passed him by a little bit. And the reality is, he had a sub come in for him that wasn't very good either. And that's concerning. Probably because he plays in the Scottish League and plays for Celtic. So that's probably why. I'm waiting for Derek to crash the door.
Oh, I'm sure this is recording, I'm sure.
Jedi had a terrible game as well. He was the one who I think was most affected by James Rodriguez doing James Rodriguez things. And he could not keep up with having 2 players basically on his side the whole time. I thought Scally was okay. He certainly wasn't the biggest issue. He wasn't a positive by any chance, but he was fine.
So then what would your center back pairing, if you had the magic wand and you had your choice of center back pairing, what would it be? Well,
I mean, I still think you have to look at Chris Richards as your most, I guess, promising center back, probably your best center back at this point. I would like to see him and Miles play again. I know that's a controversial statement because CCV plays in Scotland, and somehow that means that he's the best player that's ever existed, as opposed to Miles Robinson, who played last, which is the worst league that's ever been contrived. So, obviously Miles is nowhere near as good as those players, but I would put Miles and Richards together. I think they balance each other out very well. I think the problem was in this game, you tried to pass way too much. And this is where, again, we get into the Berhalter issues of you don't create enough chances to score a lot of goals through your possession style. You're disorganizing the opponent with the ball. This is bullshit line from his press conference.
There you go.
Well, it is bullshit, John, because we ain't seen it once.
I'm just saying that we earned the explicit rating 23 minutes.
Well,
where I am.
This is what Greg Berhalter did to us. This is what the U.S. men's national team did to us.
Midfield.
Keep
going. Okay. We can circle back if you want. Midfield starters: Weston McKennie, Johnny Cardoso, and Gio Reyna combined for a 9. So
I think there was a lot of problems that the midfield weren't able to solve. I think that's fair. I don't think it's fair to say that they were all bad.
Yeah.
I actually thought Johnny did a decent job in this game, both breaking up some attacks. But when your defense can't pass the ball to you and your defenders are the ones making the mistakes, it's hard for you to build any sort of offense from back to front, and be able to recover quick enough. And so I thought the midfielders actually were left hanging out to dry a lot by the defenders.
What Soccer America said that Johnny frequently near the action without joining it successfully, lost the ball to Jean Duran in the midfield ahead of the third goal, tracked back, caught in no man's land when Sinistera set up Rios.
That's fair.
Gio Reyna hit a couple of fine crossfield balls. He was fine. and was involved in the buildup on Weah's goal. Free kick set up a Haji right header. Reyna wasted his next free kick, overhit a through pass when precision was tantamount to the hopes of competing.
Yeah.
Weston McKennie failed to find a way to contribute offensively or defensively, yet they gave him a higher rating than Johnny.
I think Weston has games like this, to be fair, where it's hard for him to find his rhythm in a match. That's something West needs to get better at, because we see this in Serie A where he'll have fantastic games where you're like, this dude is some midfield magisterio or whatever Roy Hudson says. But
magisterial.
There you go. He has some of those games. But then he has some games where you're like, wait, is this dude good? And to be fair, the good definitely outweighs the bad by a significant portion. But West sometimes has those games. Again, I don't think the midfield was terrible. I thought Gio had bad decision making at times, but again, I think this is a symptom of the offensive system that's in place, where it is methodic and plotting and not very seamless and direct. And again, direct doesn't mean you're kicking the ball long. Direct means you're making quick, decisive, and incisive choices.
So, and then on the forwards up top, Weah and Balogun got 5s. Christian Pulisic got a 4.
Yeah, Pulisic struggled this game. I think also when you're not getting the ball a whole lot, you're going to struggle, right? Weah gets the goal, but I think other than that, he was really bad. And I think that is fair to say. He had a giveaway that directly led to a goal. He had a couple of other times where his passes or decisions to dribble were pretty bad. But yeah, I thought Pulisic, did not have a good game. I thought Balogun was okay. But again, you didn't create a lot of chances, so no one's going to get a high rating.
Substitutes. Haji Wright got a 4. CCV gets a 2. Malik Tillman and Yunus Musa and Ricardo Pepi each got 3s. Luca Della Torre got the incomplete.
Yeah, the midfield subs made us look worse. And I think that's fair to say that after they came on, our performance really dipped. And so, again, I'm wondering for Tillman and Musa, why were they not prepared enough to come into this game when the Colombia subs were? The Colombia subs, I think, all scored at one point in the game. That 3 of them at least scored. And that is, 3 scored and the other had an assist. So, why weren't our subs impactful? That may be on coaching. That also is a little bit on them. And that's a fair critique and concern going forward. I thought Tillman was a little invisible. I thought CCV was just downright bad. I think we covered that. Haji, I thought, was better. Honestly, I thought Haji was better than a 4, maybe just because he didn't play as long. But he at least tried to create on his own and was able to at least progress the ball to, if not the opponent's box, at least into the attacking third on his own. That's a little bit of I thought that's a little bit of a harsh rating, but maybe that's just because he played 45 minutes.
Colombia's victory extends their unbeaten string to 22, includes victories over Japan, Germany, Brazil, Mexico, and Spain. Trivia time for you, Bart. The last time the U.S. suffered a loss by 4 goals was when?
The CONCACAF was either the Gold Cup or the CONCACAF playoff thing, Continental Cup thing for the one of those things against Mexico in like 2000. What year was that? 11 or 13?
It was even sooner than that, and you can blame Jurgen Klinsmann. 2018 World Cup qualifying, the last game that he was in charge, 4-0 at Costa Rica.
That was, yeah. I was thinking,
I know.
We gave up 5 in those CONCACAF games in that stretch where Bob Bradley lost and then, lost his job. But yeah,
and that's where that's what I was building up to. The last time the USA conceded 5 was when?
Was after, and then Jurgen Klinsmann got shown the door. Jurgen Klinsmann also lost at home to Mexico 3-2. I was at that game. That was, or 2-1. I was at that game. That was That was a bad cold night in Columbus. Granted, there are very rarely a good night in Ohio, but that was a very bad night in Ohio.
5-0 at East Rutherford to Mexico, 2009 Gold Cup final.
That's the one I was thinking of.
And I know how you want to block Bob Bradley and Jurgen Klinsmann out of your brain.
Well, to be fair to Bob Bradley, he won the 2007 Gold Cup final 2-1 in Soldier Field. I was at that one.
Wow. So
but then we've had some bad losses for sure, but this one feels somehow worse.
Where it was phrased by Greg Berhalter in the clip that we played that it was a wake-up call and not showing enough respect for your opponent.
Which I have an issue with is why were they not respecting their opponent? This is Colombia, a team that is, ranked just one spot behind you in the world rankings. We all know that's a farce. Like, I'm sorry, the U.S. is not the 12th best team or 11th best team in the world. Come on, Coca-Cola. Just because you're headquartered in the U.S. doesn't mean you have to give us more points. But it was very clear who the better team was, right? But it was also clear which team wanted to play this game to win. And you can blame the crowd for being 90% Colombian. I blame playing in Commander's Field because I think you should never play there. Any sport ever should be played in that stadium. It is by far the worst stadium that exists in the world. I mean,
Really?
worse than San Siro.
Wow, the worst ever. I
stand by that.
Well,
let's be honest. We're playing in a Camping World also sucks. Camping World barely has chair back seats. They just decided to do that like this century. That one sucks as well, to be honest.
So then let me ask you this. You've got time, you have to turn things around because you've got another one in the midweek. What would your starting 11 in a perfect world have been going into this match this weekend? And then what are you looking for in the midweek for this second friendly coming up?
Honestly, I mean, I wouldn't have changed anything about this lineup except for starting Robinson over Ream. That's it.
Yeah.
Everyone else obviously Tyler Adams isn't fit, so you have to play Johnny. I don't think Johnny was bad enough to say that he was the problem. I think maybe you need to look at Tim Weah as a right back or someone else as a right back over Joe Scally. I don't think Joe is bad, but I think you just need to look at that considering that your other option is more. So I would say put Weah maybe as a right back and see another winger. Maybe you put Hodge left, Christian Pulisic on the right as a possibility against Brazil. But, I don't think that the lineup was necessary. Like at some point you have to understand that the lineup is the lineup because those are your best 11 players. Again, outside of maybe Ream for Robinson, it's about the closest best 11 we can get right now with the players who are available.
What are you, and let me phrase it this way. What is your outlook right now? And I guess I could probably re-ask you this question on Thursday after the second friendly, but what are you looking at right now with this team in Copa, considering the buildup that we've seen and what happened? And like I said, the immediacy is going to give a bit of a bias here. And I know that we'll probably have another set of immediacy bias after Wednesday night.
Right.
But what is your outlook? What are your other concerns, questions, other than pretty much everything involving the guy on the touchline? And when it comes to this club coming with Copa coming up the way that it is?
Well, as I tweeted after the game, follow me at Soccer for Us Pod.
There you go.
I didn't learn anything new. We knew these were going to be issues, right? We knew that the system is complex and is going to struggle against teams like this. We've seen it in the past. Canada beat us in qualifying because of what Colombia did, force individual errors because they pressed high. We knew that our center back pairing is going to be a problem because even though Chris Richards is very good, he has his weaknesses. And his partner isn't going to be as strong as I think he would want them to be. I think that we know that this team struggles to create a boatload of chances. And so we're going to have to be clinical and finish the ones we get. But that said, it is one friendly, and it is just a friendly. To answer some of the comments in the chat, yes, it's just a friendly. A lot of the European commentators who talk about the U.S., 5-1 is bad. Like, I think that's first up. 5-1 is bad. I don't like losing a friendly is whatever.
Yeah.
5-1 is inexcusable no matter what competition you're playing.
Right.
But it is just a friendly. And these things in the grand scheme of things do not mean anything toward Copa America. So yes, the response on Wednesday is important. And I think that is where, if you look at the response on Wednesday and say, okay, did they come ready to, did they bring a fist to a gunfight, or did they actually, match what was going on here? Because it felt like they brought Noodle to a gunfight on Saturday. And
it was like Indiana Jones, where he's in the public square and the guy's got the whip, and Indy just takes out the gun and goes bang.
Yeah, exactly. And a whip would have been more efficient than this game. And so that's the thing, is do they respond and match that intensity? Because again, Copa America, especially for these South American teams, means a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime they wear the national team kit, it means a whole lot. And that is something that the U.S. team needs to realize and match. Because, again, if you think that it was intense on Saturday, wait till there's an actual trophy on the line. And if they respond well, if they come out with a better intensity, pace of play, then you can feel a little bit more confident going into Copa America. That said, we're likely going to play either Brazil or Colombia in that quarterfinal match. And then again in the semifinal. So if you look at the fact that we haven't beaten Colombia in a real friendly in, I feel like, 2 decades, that's not real, but it feels like that.
Yeah.
It's been 5 times, I think, that we've lost in a row to them. That is concerning. And to talk about the dude at the top, Del, what's the laugh about quarterfinal, man? That just means you get out of the group. Like, I'm sorry, if you think that this team can't get out of the group against Panama and Bolivia, then
and if you don't, there's a problem.
Be so for real. Right. If we don't, then everyone's fired. But a quarterfinal literally just means you make it out of the group. Like, please be serious and have some sort of actual rationale to this. Okay. Quarterfinal literally just means you make it out of the group. So calm. Okay, Del, we'll see. You're right.
This sounds like a conversation that should be had over.
I mean, apparently, yeah.
But I mean,
you should make it out of your group. If you don't make it out of your group, then there's if you don't make it out of your group, then the next day, the entire coaching staff doesn't have a job, and half the players shouldn't return. Okay.
When it comes,
I'm not joking.
Understandably, when it comes to this roster, as it is currently constructed, would any of the Olympians be better served in the Copa? And would any of the Copaans be better served as Olympians?
The only one I can think of right now that maybe would help us from the Olympic roster in Copa, maybe, is Kevin Paredes. Just because he provides a little bit of he provides more like backup to Jedi Robinson, and maybe some pace on the wing. But I don't really think there's a player who's on that U23 roster right now that would help this team. Okay. And given that Josh Sargent is again hurt because the kid never drank milk as growing up, apparently.
Wow.
Ricardo Pepi needs to stay. So that would be the other one that I would say send him down if he's not going to play in Copa. But I mean, again, with Sargent hurt, Pepe's got to be your backup striker.
What about your concerns at the back?
There's not a center back that's going to come up and make anything better. Name a U23 center back.
Well,
they don't exist.
That's the problem. Is there anybody on the Olympian roster? Don't you get like age exceptions for the Olympic?
Yeah, well, so the rumor is that Zimmerman or Miles, but Miles is already on this roster, and I'm sorry, I don't think Walker's fit for Copa America anymore. The dude is barely fit for MLS. He doesn't play much anymore, so he's hurt a lot. Has been hurt a lot.
And that was where I was trying. That was what I was trying to lead into, was the idea of possibly Miles or Walker drifting back.
Well, Miles has every chance to make this Copa roster. I think it is a little concerning that he wasn't in this game. We'll see what the Brazil friendly plays out for him, because I do know that Greg specifically mentioned Miles as someone who could be part of that Olympic roster, which is fine for me. If he plays in the Olympics, great. I think obviously that would have been the plan back in 2021 at that point. Mm-hmm. But I think he should be on the Copa America roster, because I think he's a center back that we need to have on the roster. But, well, I don't know if he's going to somehow make us not concede 5 goals to Colombia. Maybe we only concede 3.
But Uncle Dave, to your point, I think Noah might be a cycle away. I don't think it's not as big of a joke as you think. Noah's, I think, a cycle away from making, if he continues to evolve, he's a cycle away from making these kinds of impacts.
So you don't subscribe to Soccer for Us Pod. It's you just subscribe to Soccer down here. As on this.
It's a part of this here network. Yeah. So if you're on Soccer, if you've got SDH, then you've got Soccer for US. There you go.
Yep. So there you go. Mm-hmm. If you subscribe to Soccer down here, you get my stuff when it comes out.
I didn't get the chance to ask you this, but what did you think about Mexico's wild ride over the last week?
Well, to be honest, I hope that the U.S. can replicate it, right? Because look,
I mean, that was,
they got dog walked against Uruguay
in Denver, and then you turn around and go and play at Kyle Field of all places.
And to be fair, look like you're about to get dog walked again, turn it around. So, I think if you're the US, you want to have a similar, look at similar to, Canada tied France just recently, and good for them. So you have to hope that you get a better performance against Brazil. And if you do, great. If you don't, it's fair to be concerned. But again, I will just say, because I know, Del, you hate literally every coach of your teams ever, and think that every team that you have is terrible. But if the U.S. absolutely should. The expectation is still you make it out of the group. I'm sorry, but Bolivia is not as good as you. Panama is not as good as you. Okay. You can beat both of those teams, and you're making it into the quarterfinal. That's all it takes. That's all the quarterfinal takes in Copa America, is to make it out of your group. You have to finish top 2 in your group. I don't know where you think that is some impossibility just because we lost to Colombia 5-1, okay, in one friendly. So this is where I will say y'all need to chill, because that is an overreaction that I can't get down with. The reaction of Greg Berhalter needs to be on the hot seat. The reaction of our players need to step up and match intensity. The reaction that we played like absolute crap, those are fine. But to somehow be able to extrapolate one performance to say that somehow you're not going to make it out of a group that involves both Bolivia and Panama, y'all need a reality check. Y'all need to be so for real.
Well, and Tom, to your point, to Tom's point, Pep will be free next May. Is it too late for the World Cup?
No, absolutely not. It's only 2025. Absolutely not.
But I also think that he's going to be the new head coach of NYCFC going into their new barn before he does anything on a national scale.
Yeah. Look, if you want to set a realistic expectation, I think for Greg Berhalter, it is, in my opinion, if you do not win your quarterfinal match in Copa, I think you absolutely need to evaluate if he needs to be your coach, because we made the semifinals in 2016 with a less talented squad. Okay. You are again hosting this match or this tournament. You can talk about opponents and all that kind of stuff, but if you can't win your group, or B, win a knockout round game as the host of a major international tournament. I don't trust you as the manager to be able to do it in 2026 when you're hosting the World Cup. And that's what you're kind of looking at here. And I'm sorry to put those types of expectations of you actually need to, I don't know, do something positive in a tournament. But you look at the 2022 World Cup and you did what was it expected. I mean, I'm sorry. I know we played England well, but at the end of the day, you won one game. And I'm sorry, but your record is right now not very good against teams who are actually very good.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. Yeah, and Tom says, he said that Pep wants to coach a national team. Nothing wrong with dreaming. I just think that you might be a cycle off when it comes to Pep and the U.S. men's national team. So what is the week for the U.S. Soccer for U.S. POD? It might be busy, or are you just going to kind of get everything?
Yeah, so hopefully we'll record something Thursday after the U.S. match. We'll talk about some positives. We'll talk about Emma Hayes and the U.S. women looking. I mean, I think that was the worst part for me is you came off 2 friendlies to start the Emma Hayes area where you saw a team playing intentional soccer, and then you watched the U.S. men play the exact opposite of whatever intentional soccer is, and that was concerning. So we'll talk positives, which is Emma Hayes, and we'll talk hopefully not all negatives, because the U.S. turns it around and finds a result of some sort against Brazil, and looks maybe, I don't know, halfway decent on Wednesday. We also have a U23 friendly tomorrow, which who knows where that's being televised because U.S. Soccer hasn't mentioned that. It's not even on HBO Max. So
true. Might be on some bootleg YouTube streams.
I mean, the way that they do it, I don't know why it can't just be on Max. I don't know. Maybe
FS2, something like that. Buried in a corner someplace. So does this mean that we're having you back on Thursday morning? Is that how this works?
Probably not Thursday morning, but maybe Friday morning.
Okay,
Thursday, I have real world stuff.
And that's not allowed. This is the summer of soccer. That real world stuff's not allowed. Pencil yourself in for hour number 2 on Friday. How about that?
I'll come in after the smart people talk.
And then that'll be should be our friends at Beyond Goals at 9:30. So hour number 2 would be after that. Yes, the smart folks. So
which actually might be good if you get both Greg or Parky. They can comment on that mentality in the locker room at a time like that, because 5-1 is a demoralizing defeat any which way you slice it.
And it also reminds me that I've got to pull that Jimmy McGinty speech and have it ready for us. One of the best coaches that professional football has ever had, Jimmy McGinty of our Washington Sentinels, and Shane Falco at quarterback. So that's the best.
I do blame the result on playing in the Commander Stadium. I don't know if you could have picked a worst vibes stadium in the country.
Well, if RFK still existed, you'd be with the Raccoons, or if you played at Oakland Alameda.
Better vibes than racism. I'll take the Raccoons.
There you go. All right, brother. We will be seeing you as we drift through here in the summer of soccer, and we will be catching up with you in hour number 2 on Friday. Be safe, my friend.
All right. Y'all have a good one.
It's Bart. Bart's venting his spleen and drinking from his Les Miserables mug. So he's on fire this morning. We do actually have an update on the Carlo Ancelotti quotes. Real Madrid have confirmed that they will play in the inaugural expanded Club World Cup, despite Carlo Ancelotti suggesting otherwise. In quotes, he now says we're taken out of context. Quote, Real Madrid communicates that at no time has our participation in the new Club World Cup been in question. Our club will play as planned in this official competition and do so with pride and the utmost enthusiasm to make our millions and millions, that was not in the quote, of fans around the world dream again of a new title, end quote. So whatever Carlos says, whatever Carlos said, it's now apparently been taken out of context, and they are going to play. We do have a stupidity down here update. If I can actually, I don't know, dial it up from our friends at the AP. In our daily fight of stupidity down here, 3 Valencia fans have been handed 8-month prison sentences after pleading guilty to racially insulting Real Madrid forward Vinicius Jr. in the first conviction for racism-related cases in professional soccer in Spain. The fans won't be allowed to enter soccer stadiums for 2 years and will have to pay for all the court proceedings. The fans were detained after a Spanish league match between Real Madrid and Valencia at Mestalla in May of 2023. The match was briefly stopped after Vinicius was insulted. Valencia had already banned the fans from Mestalla. So that's a start. Congratulations. Well done. About blanking time, since Bart has already given us the explicit rating this morning. So 3 fans, 8-month prison sentences for stupidity down here. About damn time. I would hope that this is some kind of a benchmark and something that other countries and other courts and other judges and other teams would sit there and say, hey, they did this. Let's go ahead and have the testicular fortitude to do the same kind of a thing. So, well done, Madrid. It's about blanking time. I think we can keep the clock rolling forward. We don't have to reset the number on the board back to 0. We might actually be able to move the clock forward a little bit. 8-month prison sentences for Valencia fans. I still want to know how they're going to be monitored once they get out of prison to go into stadia inside La Liga. I mean, you could do the Bobby Valentine thing where you sit there, you put on the fake mustache and the glasses and be in the Mets dugout. I don't know how you're going to monitor them. You're going to have like ankle bracelets or something that go off. I appreciate the idea. I'd love to know how you're going to pull it off, though. They're not allowed in stadia. Frankly, if they're not allowed to enter stadia for 2 years, now 2 years, literally 2 years, that's where you didn't go far enough. You didn't go far enough with that. What you didn't do was say lifetime, which is what you should have done in the first place. Lifetime ban. None of this 2-year-ish. None of this 2-year stuff. None of it. None. No. It's got to be full. You can't sit there and go, well, oh, yeah, we jailed them for 8 months, so that means that they don't get a lifetime ban, they get a 2-year ban. No. You don't get off that easy. You get a cookie for putting them in jail, but you don't get a cookie for only giving them a 2-year ban. You kind of got half the battle there. You don't get full credit, you get half credit. Great, you put them in jail. Charge them to the fullest extent of the law with whatever charges are appropriate, but they need lifetime bans. 2 years and the monitoring of the whole thing, I'd love to know how that's going to get pulled off. So stupidity down here got a half credit this morning. Nicely done by the Spanish courts, but not well enough by the leagues and the courts and the legal system to only give these clowns, and that's what they are, 2-year bans. Yeah, the match got stopped. Woo! Because we talked about it at the time. The stuff that Vinicius Jr. has had to go through in that league it's beyond criminal. I can't even think of the words that are beyond criminal in this case. And yet, Uncle Dave, I hope that they're working on Luis Rubiales, because you know that Rubiales will sit there and try to gum it up through the courts and sit there and go, I didn't do anything wrong, or all this kind of stuff. But yeah, keep an eye on the Luis Rubiales case and anything attached to that, because you know that Rubiales will appeal and he will do whatever he can to try to keep his name out there and try to continue to be a part of what's going on specifically. Alex, I did not know that Usain Bolt tore his ACL during a charity soccer match. I did not know that. But you know how, he wanted to, try out and be a part of national teams and clubs in England and that kind of a thing. He tore his ACL during a charity soccer match. Ew. Dell says it's not too late, but they'll have to hire a new coach after Copa once Greg is fired. Dell, the bastion of patented optimism involving the USMNT this morning on a Monday. But that's what we're here for on Reaction Mondays. That is what we are here for, to make sure that everybody can get it all out of their system. That's what we do here. That's what we want to do, is we want to make sure that these Mondays are where everything gets vented, everything's out of your system, everything continues. And if you can't get it out on Monday, if there's still some stuff there, it's off your chest by Tuesday so we can get into the week. That's what we want to do here. We want to make sure that Monday, in addition to being a hashtag reaction Monday, over, under, or on par, is a cleanse. Anything that's on your mind. I don't want people weighed down. I don't want people weighed down by the thoughts of the weekend, because the weekend is supposed to be what the weekend is. It's supposed to be, respite. It's supposed to be enjoyment. It's supposed to be where I fire up the grill and try not to set my hair on fire and try to cook for the boss and for the rowdy man. That's what the weekend is supposed to be. Not something where we are angered and burdened and go to work on Monday and we're all crabby and nasty and saying things out loud, instead of muttering them under our breath or yelling in the car during traffic. No, we don't want that. Reaction Mondays are reaction Mondays. It's to get it all out of the system. All out of the system. Out there. No, we have not, Wiley. We did not. We have not discussed this because it's going to take a bit. So bookmark this because of all the other topics that we have this morning. So after our discussion about TST, then we will be discussing the rebuking. I rebuke you. I rebuke you, VAR. Yes, we will definitely be getting in this as a part of the morning, because it is worthy of probably the remainder of the program. So, yeah, after our TST discussion, we are waiting on Ryan Marcano and Christian Weglin, by the way. It is multiple Oglethorpians. I think that's probably the way to describe it. And so Ryan and Christian are trying to figure out, and that's the beauty of the green room, is that I can see how they're trying to orchestrate all this stuff. It looks like they are in a kitchen and getting everything squared away. Like I said, that's the beauty of the green room. I can sit there and see how they're trying to orchestrate all this stuff. It appears that they are settled. They're settled and locked in one place. And so what that means is we start in hour number 2. We're going to talk TST. And we bring in Ryan and Christian. Gentlemen, good morning. Thanks for dropping by. Let me see if I can unmute. You guys have to unmute your mic. There it is.
Yes, sir. Good morning, John. How we doing?
Doing all right. Ryan, for those of you that might remember, Ryan is one of our expert analysts when it comes to the SAA soccer tournament. You might have seen him on his cameos helping us out in the pre and post when it comes to stuff at Oglethorpe. But we have dueling Oglethorpians here. Actually, I don't know if you're dueling Oglethorpians because you were on the same team. Here's your TST update with our friends at Pasha. Now, guys, now that the tournament for you is over, for Pasha Luxury FC, let me just ask, and I'll start with Ryan since he's on the left-hand side of my screen. What was the experience like for you?
Man, it was definitely a unique experience. I think the event itself was amazing. They definitely put on a good event in terms of the organization for it and everything else like that, getting all the teams together, almost 50 teams together from all around the country and even some people from outside the United States as well. Definitely a great event. And I think if I speak for everyone, we had an amazing time.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Christian, let me ask you, how did this go down for you guys? Was it something like, was it phone tag, or was it, the top of the mountain at Pasha Luxury sitting there going, okay, we need as many Oglethorpe guys as possible, round them all up. We need you here. How did all of this happen for you guys?
It's, first off, John, thank you for having me. This is awesome. No, it's actually pretty funny how the whole thing came together. I was, I think, talking to my mom this morning. It's pretty crazy how Wednesday night men's league team kind of turned into this competitive, highly a lot of quality in the squad, and we were able to put a team together that was able to compete at this tournament, which for me was the first time. Absolute amazing first impressions. The tournament really did a great job organizationally.
Just between the staff and everything else, like getting the stars and like handling certain personalities and people like that. I think they just put on a quality event, and we had a good experience.
All right, so then let me ask it this way: what was the coolest off the field moment that you had? Then obviously we're talking to them because they're not prepping for the final, but they did lose to a team on the right-hand side of the bracket that is playing for the championship at TST. So they have that they can hang their hat on. What was the coolest off the field moment that you had, and the coolest on the field moment that you had is like, oh my God, I'm marking so and so?
Go ahead.
Off the field, I would just say going through the whole experience with the team, getting to know the guys. I think Hassan really did a great job at selecting a good group, not only of quality football players, but quality people that also made this journey one to remember. On the field, I would say I'll never forget. I mean, that first game against Sneaky Fox, we lost in target time, but that was one of the most fun games I think I've played in a while. And just playing against guys that have national team experience, it's definitely it's definitely a great experience. Yeah.
Well, so then, Christian, does the target score time goal to beat? I think it was Della saying that you beat La Mexicana in target time. What was that? Was that obviously that's a highlight? But what were some of the other highlights for you in this tournament?
Yeah,
That was
definitely awesome.
Great goal. He's just being humble, man. No, it was awesome. That was definitely big highlight for the tournament. I mean, even just as a friend, like seeing my boy just score that goal was so awesome. And maybe off the field too, Hassan, in terms of accommodations, had us, all the boys were staying in a pretty nice house in North Carolina, and this one neighborhood, all the boys under one roof. So, I mean, again, thanks to Hassan, he's the man, and he had us all together, and we were just the enjoyment of being with the squad, playing games, and the camaraderie of the team and stuff like that. That was probably the best off the field. But I mean, in terms of on the field, I think that Sneaky Fox game was cool. Defending Giovinco, that quick goal game was nice. That was cool too. But yeah, just seeing the moments and stuff like that we got to be a part of, is looking back now is really cool.
Christian, how much of an adjustment is it to play in TST? Because you've got to know rules, you've got to know quirks, you got to know TST, and if you don't score, it goes from a man down. You're playing odd man. How much of a rules collision is it in your brain? It's like, oh crap, I can't do this. I have to do this.
Yeah, I kind of started gearing up a little, maybe a couple of weeks before, looking at the rules, kind of helping, because I knew obviously slightly different than 11's aside, all the little intricacies, and I feel like I definitely had ambitions to go further in the tournament. I mean, if you want to win and succeed, you have to pay attention to those details, and I think, it was a learning experience as well, for sure. Because I mean, dealing with a man down target score, basically with the extra player as a keeper, it is a whole nother game. I watched a little bit of ice hockey growing up, and you had to kind of bring that knowledge into the play. It was interesting.
Question from Dell, who was actually there at TST watching things this past weekend. What about star visits? Did you meet anybody like Nani, Stephen Ireland, Tom Huddleston? Who did you meet anybody? Did you get any pictures? What pictures are on the phone?
Definitely met and saw some of those people. There was a cool little athlete village they had set up for the players, all the players, just kind of like, I mean, I've never been to the Olympics, but just similar to that aspect, like an area where all the players are, like a different like tents and stuff for the players to hang out in between games and things like that. So definitely saw all the stars and stuff. I don't think I got any personal pictures myself, but
Yeah, I think the only one I got was with Brad Evans at the beginning. I was kind of excited about the whole thing. I was after the game against Sneaky Fox. But then after that, I feel like we didn't really face anyone of that caliber, and that's where I was hoping we would. But
Well, you're plowing through, folks. You get into the bracket, you're getting into the playoffs, man. It's just who you play and who you take out. That's what you're doing.
yeah.
So let me start with you, Christian. We'll go Christian Ryan on this one. So we talked about how different the adjustments are when it comes to prepping for TST versus normal and all the star power and everything like that. In trying to track Ryan down so he could be on the show, it's like, we set up a time and then you guys end up playing like in the middle of the night. You're playing at like 11 and you don't get into bed till like 1:30 or 2. And how crazy, Christian, is it to be prepared for this kind of a group/knockout tournament where you could be playing first thing in the morning, and then you got to turn around and you could be playing late at night? How weird is this tournament, and how difficult is it to get ready for something like this that is like this tournament?
Yeah, it is not easy for sure. I think I was fortunate to obviously come off a full season in Germany and being in that environment. It's essentially, training every day. The tournament. I was joking around with Ryan. It basically is a training session of its own. You warm up and then you do a little small-sided game, and that's really. In training, I try to win every game, so it's really nothing different. And that's kind of how I try to go about it. I knew, obviously, the future. Like, we didn't know how many games we'd have to play. We didn't know the schedule, like you said, but you really just have to take everything for face value and do the best you can with what you're given. And I think that's what we did.
Ryan, what about for you?
I think there's nothing really you can do to prepare for the moments that we were in, like on the field. But we've been playing 77 small-sided silverbacks. Like that's how this team started in the first place, essentially. But the field that we play on is a little bit bigger. No one that we play against has strategy or any sort of things like that we were up against in this tournament. Not that they don't have quality players. There's definitely quality amongst the players at Silverbacks for sure. Like there's other players that play at Silverbacks that were in the tournament with other teams as well. So there's just nothing really to prepare you. Like there's you gotta show up in that moment on the day to play, and obviously there's preparation and training and getting touches right and passes right and things like that. But just a whole different ball game in terms of strategy and things like that. Definitely learned a lot this week in terms of the next level, or getting to the next couple of rounds if we did have aspirations like that in the future. Just what we would need to do going forward. Definitely different, very different.
Yeah, Ryan Marcano, Christian Wegland hanging out with us at Go Petrels, probably keeping an eye on everything going on with these guys. Oglethorpians who got to play in TST and made it to the round of 16 before losing to eventual finalist out of the right-hand side of the bracket, La Bombonera. You mentioned, Ryan, about preparation and all this kind of stuff. Christian, let me ask it this way. As you guys are trying to prepare, it's like, I got stuff I got to focus on. Is your phone blowing up? Is your email blowing up? It's like, what's the response when people get to see you guys on, streaming or whatever? Hey, you guys look great, all this kind of stuff. Do you embrace the noise? Was your phone blowing up, or do you try to turn your phone off in moments like this when you're trying to chase after a title?
I honestly tried to ignore most of that stuff until the end. I take it in and acknowledge it, obviously, but I feel like, it is another whole nother experience. Yeah, having to, it's.
Chris is a very, very humble guy, and I think it's right. He does put it away, and he focuses very well in the moments where he needs to be. But I definitely like this sport, and cheering from fans and family and friends and things like that. Obviously, he does too, but he's definitely more. I don't want to say shy, but just like
hearing from people that hadn't reached out, and it was definitely awesome.
Yeah, like people that you think even wouldn't be watching, or that just you don't know how invested they are into it. It was awesome to see the support around us and people that reached out to say just congratulations for being there and making it as far as you did.
Okay, so Ryan, did John Aiken, your old head coach, blow up your phone? Was he giving you guys pointers the whole time? Was Aiken blowing it up like, no, you got to get the pet, those kinds of things?
No, honestly, I was looking forward to hearing from him, but I still haven't had a call.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Where's he at? I don't know.
So, all right. So then, since Christian put his phone away, so Christian, when you plugged your phone back in and you got to see who was reaching out to you, what was the most random reach out that you got? You mentioned folks that hadn't caught up with you, probably since high school or whatever. What were some of those random reach outs that you got?
Yeah, high school was definitely like some random friends from high school that I really hadn't had much connection with this past few years.
Hey man, can you get me tickets for your next round?
I mean, I knew I had friends all over the place, but like there were some friends in Raleigh that I didn't know, and they reached out, and it was definitely really cool. But yeah, the most random
was it
maybe my like 6th grade physics teacher.
Yeah, I was gonna say teachers. Teachers even reaching out everywhere.
From the German school in Portugal. Yeah.
Wow. All right. So Ryan, most random reach out for you?
Yeah, probably I was gonna say a teacher as well. Just, I mean, they showed support to me over the years. I just thought like once I left the university or the school, they wouldn't keep up with me that much, and just it's cool to see the people invested into this, and maybe they don't even. Sometimes it's cool that you create these relationships with people over the years, and they're not even invested into the tournament. They're invested into you, and they don't care about what they're watching. They just want to watch you and things like that. So it's important to, I think, those relationships that you've created over the years, seeing some of those people that just come and still support you. It's cool.
Dell, who's watching in Charleston, our resident Charleston Battery fan.
Hey, Charleston.
So he says he watched you play on Friday over on the far field, and you played great. Did you guys talk about coming back next year? Have the plans for Pasha Luxury for 2025 already started?
Not officially. I think we got some aspirations to be back at the tournament next year for sure. At least me and him do.
Definitely.
Yeah, but, we'll beat Pasha Luxury. We'll go ahead and do it. It's just the two of us. Yeah, we'll bring forward.
No, Hassan is definitely looking forward to potentially being in the tournament again next year. I think he really enjoyed the experience as well, and I can't say enough nice things about him. Seriously, he really took care of the group so amazingly this week, and I wouldn't put it past him to be there at the tournament next year.
All right, so last question for both of you, and it's the same one, but I'll start with Christian to get his response. For someone who didn't watch, knows the tournament's there, didn't watch on whatever platform, and they might be interested in the sport, or there might be an athlete interested in playing in TST, what would you sit there and say to encourage someone to either play in the tournament or watch the tournament as its own animal, knowing that that it is what it is? What's your selling point for someone who wants to be a part of the tournament, either as a fan or as an athlete?
Yeah, I mean, as an athlete, I think it's a great experience just to, test yourself among some of the elites of the game, and I think it's also really cool to see kind of different styles. I mean, obviously, there's been the teams from futsal, players from that high level, and then
pro indoor guys, different,
right, and then from the normal football that we know from outdoor, and it's cool to see how those clash. And it's, I mean, nowhere else would you be able to get to see something like this. And then the fan experience they created there was, amazing. It's like
Just how every game ends on a goal.
like a tennis tournament, and then the way the games end. I mean, I feel like the most American way, but it has to have some sort of exciting ending, and it's obviously not fun if you're the team that's winning. I mean, it's not ideal, but I think it's a really cool setup. I definitely think they have room to grow, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Yeah.
And so, Ryan, what about from you?
Yeah, I agree with everything he said as well. I'd honestly, not that I am coming up with ideas for them, but I'd like to see potentially maybe like a tour for them to go around in different cities of the United States potentially, or maybe even outside these states. I think that'd be maybe a cool next thing for them if they were looking to expand or do something else. In terms of being a player in the tournament, I don't think it's just necessarily one of those things you want to hop into for sure. I mean, it's lots of money and training and preparation in terms of it. Not that people can't do that, but just it was a lot to get all this together and for the tournament and stuff. So preparation in that terms of as a player. Train hard and be ready. As a fan, though, yeah, the fan experience was absolutely amazing. My parents were there too, and my sister, she's a player as well, and she had a blast at the event and thought it was amazing. So in terms of the fan experience, couldn't recommend it anymore.
Okay, so I fibbed. Dell's got one more question for you. What'd you think of the way that Newtown played?
Man,
Great question.
this Charleston guy, I love it. I mean, it's effective. No one likes it, but
So what did they do for someone who didn't see the match?
So they would play out the games fairly normally. The 40-minute, the first and second half, they would play out fairly normally. Just their play style, possessing the ball and creating goals. And then once the target score hit, they would the keeper would hold possession of the ball at his feet, like actually not dribbling the ball, not moving the ball whatsoever at all, and just stand on it until time would be wasted, essentially, until they would remove a player from the field, which is that's what the rules are in target score. So they take a player off the field every 3 minutes. So they would use that to their advantage and keep the ball, and then have the other team running back and forth with their two players, getting them tired, whatever. And then until they could create a very, very open opportunity where the guy's essentially just passing the ball into the goal.
Yeah, the key was that extra man just became more and more useful the less players were on the field, and that's what they took advantage of.
And they would sub the goalie for a field player essentially as it got to lower and lower and lower. So it'd be like three field players versus
2v1.
two
or whatever
players and then a goalie standing in the goal. But
excellent. I mean, I will give them credit. I mean, the way they
stayed patient
and possessed the ball.
Yeah.
No doubt. Like there's credit due there. You can't. I mean,
they got booed multiple games and still stayed composed. Like I respect it. I mean, you're trying to win $1 million out here. What did they say? They beat Reggae Rovers.
Beat Reggae Rovers 2v2 in the end by passing it back and forth, and everyone was cheering for Rovers to beat them.
Yeah, I mean, we were there watching it. It was disappointing.
That's, I guess, one thing too. Maybe a shot clock of some sort would be not a bad idea.
Mm-hmm. So what they did is they basically played a four corners offense, waited for man advantage. Then when they got man advantage, they swap out their keeper for a position player and just make it kind of like an odd offensive rush, basically.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay. Well, now that we have fixed all the issues with TST, gentlemen, go and get your breakfast and get your caffeine and get your carbs back in your system, guys. It was great to catch up with you. Fantastic run in the tournament there. with Pasha Luxury losing in the round of 16 to La Bombonera, who is in the final taking on Nani FC. And that is, when's the 10th? That is tonight. So it's tonight at 8:30.
8:30, yes, sir. Go
So,
Bombonera.
yeah. So, well, hey, because you can sit there and say,
Bombonera.
it's like we lost to the eventual champion. That's exactly how you play this out. Gentlemen, glad you had fun in the tournament. Thanks for dropping by here on a Monday and breaking it all down for us. And go Stormy Petrels, guys. Thanks for dropping by.
Yes, sir. Much love, John. Appreciate you.
For sure. Thank you so much.
There we go. That's Ryan and Christian. So Ryan Marcano and Christian Waglin. And it was great to catch up with them and find out about everything that they got to experience with Pasha Luxury with TST. So that was very, very cool. And now that we have fixed all the issues with TST, especially with the shot clock, that's the big thing there. I think the shot clock is what we're staring at when it comes to TST for next year. So yeah, I'm sitting here looking at the bracket, and it's like 8:30 tonight. It is Nani FC and La Bombonera. Nani FC beat Newtown Pride 2-1. La Bombonera beat Hoosier Army, the IU alums, 3-1. So that's your TST final, as both of those teams play for $1 million. And Nani is the calm one in all of this. That's just wild. Nani was getting into like a fight and stuff. And it's like he was the one who was trying to break everything up. But that was really cool. Like I said, glad that we could finally catch up with the two of them. And it stinks that, instead of it being on a match day as they're chasing after a championship, we're catching up with them to reflect on the tournament past. So, so that's where we are. It was really cool to be able to finally catch up with them. Sometimes it is like chasing after. It is like trying to grab water through an open hand sometimes. But now, Wiley, what you wanted to know is another one of the topics that we needed to discuss here this morning. And we sit there, and I know that a lot of the time we will sit there and we will talk about things being released in what we refer to as a news dump situation. Traditionally, you end up with things in sports where organizations will wait until folks are distracted by other things or in a position where they can't respond to when information will be released, where they think they just, we released the information. And then you look at the time that they released it and you sit there and go, So Saturday morning, it was time for Pro to release their version of Inside Video Review, Inside the VAR Studio, as we call it. So it occurred, the timestamp, so literally it was Saturday morning. So Saturday morning, while we're all sleeping in and doing whatever, on a Saturday morning where, unless you're one of 8 teams in Major League Soccer that played on the weekend, and that's another topic that we probably will get into before the show is over. So 9:06 Saturday morning, Inside the VAR Studio is released, plus the written page on Pro's website, proreferees.com, where Greg Barkey comes out. He's the manager of video review for Pro. He came out with the video tease to push everyone to go watch on Pro's website. So 9:06 Saturday morning, they come out with the tease. Hey, Inside the VAR Studio is out. And, you don't have James Lipton to discuss the topics or anything, but the video goes out. And the one instance that was of most interest to Atlanta United fans was not inside the VAR Studio. But what they did do is release it to their written copy, and it was done. What they'll do is they'll have the timed release video, and then they'll come up with another full screen of incidents that they don't have the time to talk about inside the VAR Studio. And so in doing that, The Atlanta moment was there. It was released in that particular time frame and in that particular segment. It was not released in Inside the VAR studio. It was released in the single page with the still photographs and things like that. And so you end up with Inside Video Review, and it goes for about 11 minutes. And they go through a bunch of different ones and the week's video review use in Major League Soccer. So if it's not there, it goes into what they refer to as the definitive angle. And the definitive angle is that the other ones that they don't get to. In the definitive angle for MLS Week 18, the goal that we wanted to, if you were an Atlanta United fan, discuss, because it was the last issue, is the last element discussed in the segment. It's the last one of all of them. And so I will post the link in the Twitch pitch. So if you want to look at the definitive angle, you can. It's just written copy of all of the other moments that were not inside the VAR studio. You have the DC Toronto penalty kick and yellow card, Nixon Gomes fouling Garrison Tubbs, the Miami and St. Louis goal, Jordi Alba onside, Philadelphia Montreal red card for violent conduct involving Ariel Lassiter and Jose Martinez, Chicago and LA's penalty kick, Seahos committing a punishable handball offense in the penalty area. Final decision was penalty kick to LAG. Nashville, New England, penalty kick and yellow card for stopping a promising attack. Javier Arriaga, punishable handball offense. Final decision, PK and a yellow card. Portland and Houston, offside, no goal. Ibrahim Aliyu and Coco Kataskia. Final decision, offside, indirect free kick to Portland. RSL and Austin, Andres Gomez. Onside, pass to him by Cristiano Arango. Chicho Arango in the buildup by the goal by Anderson Julio. RSL and Austin, Brendan Hines Ike commits a punishable handball offense inside the 6. Final decision was a PK to RSL. Vancouver, Colorado, no penalty as Matias Laborda did not foul Kevin Cabral. Cabral tried to get as much out of slight contact as possible. Initially, Laborda was called for contact inside the 18, and they were going to award a PK, but it was waved off. Then, the last one. The moment with Josh Cohen and the ball over the line. Ball deflects Derek Williams off of Derek. Final decision, goal to Charlotte. Now, here is what Pro's opinion was of that particular decision. Quote, with no camera on the goal line, the best angle to use was the left 18 camera. The ball was in the air, which makes the decision of a clear goal or not more difficult. While the entire ball may have crossed the goal line, Pro feels that this did not meet the threshold of a clear and obvious error and would have preferred that the review had not been recommended. Once again, for emphasis, Pro feels that this did not meet the threshold of a clear and obvious error and would have preferred that the review had not been recommended. So basically, Pro was not a fan of the decision that was made by VAR. I'm kind of pausing for effect here. Timothy Ford, by the way, just to let you know, Timothy Ford, who was the VAR in that match, got to be a VAR in Sporting in Seattle on Saturday night. So he continued to get assignments. Izmir Pekmic, the man in the middle, was the center ref for St. Louis City and Portland Timbers. We asked, because this was a 3-minute and 7-second debate. It was a review of 3 minutes and 7 seconds. We asked if the audio and video was going to be released from this conversation. Pro respectfully said, no, it is not. We also asked why it was not included in Inside the VAR studio, and they gave the response that I anticipated that they would give, having to do with basically time constraints within the segment itself. They want Inside Video Review with Greg Barkey to be a certain time frame. They want it to be a certain total running time, which is what I anticipated they would say, because if you took, another 45 seconds to a minute, I'm sure that it would blow the curve on the whole thing. So we asked 2 questions of Pro this weekend, and I give them full credit for responding as quickly as they did. But 1, you weren't going to see it in Inside Video Review because of time constraints. 2, because it was addressed in the definitive angle, Pro considers it addressed, and they are not releasing the audio from that 3-minute and 7-second review. And like I said, I give Pro full credit for answering on a weekend. It was a match day. It was not a full match day. We reached out to them, and they gave those 2 answers. And once again, for the record, Izmir Pekmich got to be a center ref on Saturday. Timothy Ford, the VAR in that incident, got to be VAR this weekend as well for Sporting in Seattle. And I have yet to go back and see if there was anything that needed any kind of a VAR discussion. Maybe we'll just get that on Friday as well. But I have heard nothing out of Sporting and Seattle that raised a hue and cry to the level of what was here this past weekend involving Atlanta and Charlotte. And in the review of that incident, remember that as the pool reporter, Doug Robertson of the AJC wanted to ask about that particular incident. On June 2nd, Doug Robertson of the AJC asked, without an inline camera, how was it clear and obvious that your initial no call on Charlotte's first goal was incorrect? The answer at the time, and we talked about it last week after the Charlotte match, where you have to ask, and let me give you the answer first, and we'll circle back. Answer from center ref from the pool. The VAR had access to an angle that provided sufficient evidence that the ball crossed the hole of the goal line. That is the answer given to the pool reporter question after the match on that particular play against Charlotte on Sunday afternoon. Remember last Monday we talked about this. But in going back to Pro's answer, with no camera on the goal line, the best angle to use was the left 18 camera. So you are trusting a camera angle that is, I'm not going to say, well, probably somewhere between 30 and 45 degrees away from straight line. According to Pro, 30 to 45 degrees away from a straight line shot, and you don't have goal line technology. But Pro answers, the VAR had access to an angle that provided sufficient evidence that the ball crossed the hole of the goal line. If it was that left 18 camera, that's a load of ish. I don't see how that is even possible. Using all of the Newtonian physics that I failed in high school, I failed to see, and there were folks that went out on the 280 character app and did the drawing of the X, the Y, and the Z axes and thought that in drawing their, lines, that the ball had 2 inches of clearance and did not clear over the whole of the goal line, which is what the ball is supposed to do. The entirety of the soccer ball is supposed to clear the goal line. Any part that's on it, no goal. The people drawing X, Y, and Z axes thought that there was 2 inches of leeway with the soccer ball on the goal line. Yet, VAR decides, okay, if it's this left 18 camera, if we can, if we take the extrapolation here, if we are to assume that it was the angle, that they had an angle they were comfortable with, and then Pro coming back behind and saying no camera on the goal line, best angle to use was the left 18. If they used the left 18, then I don't know how they came up with it. I really don't. I don't know how the decision was made. And because we will not get the 3-minute and 7-second release of the audio and video conversation, we're stuck with this. And I mean that on multiple fronts. So that's where we are with that particular incident. Morning, Derek. Morning, 4-card. 4-card Pro can go pound sand. Michael Head, good morning. Pro is such an ish organization. Will still mad about the decision and their write-up Brad's red with LAFC. Absolutely. We got that conversation. We got the LAFC discussion with Sergi Boyko and David Barry. David Barry did not work a match this past weekend at VAR. And Sergi Boyko worked in the midweek, but he did not work this past weekend. So, and understandable. So we get the audio with LAFC and Brad's red involving Mateus Bogusz. See, we didn't even get to reffing down here with Bart this morning involving Pro and VAR. That's how much we were talking about the national team. Will says they said the VAR in the center believed he could have got to the ball. Not that it was clear and obvious that he would have got to the ball. I think versus I know is not appropriate because it is supposed to be a clear and obvious error. I do not know how from a shot from behind and from the left 18 slash, which is that camera that we call it a slash camera because it's at an angle as opposed to straight up and down. I'd love to know the rationale. I'd love to have a conversation with Timothy Ford to sit there and say, how did you come to this conclusion? Was it from the one behind? Was it from the left 18? How did you come up to this conclusion? What was your thought process here? But because the audio and video of this discussion between Esmir Pekmic and Timothy Ford will not be released, we can only think it through and sit there and go, okay, was it this? Was it this? We are still left with questions in this. Yet Major League Soccer continues to give Pekmic and Ford assignments. Ford got a VAR assignment this past weekend. Something to keep an eye on going forward. The number of assignments that David Barry gets as VAR, he was the VAR in the LAFC incident with Brad's red with Mateus Bogusz. How many more VAR assignments that Timothy Ford gets? Does he go back out on the field? What are his assignments and what are Esmir Pekmic's assignments going forward? And what are Sergi Boyko's assignments going forward? So those 4 names. Keep an eye on those 4 names. Sergi Boyko, David Barry, Timothy Ford, Esmir Pekmic. Keep an eye on those 4 names and how they may or may not continue to get assignments. We don't know. Michael, if both individuals worked this weekend, how were they rebuked? Beaten with a wet noodle? Perhaps. I don't, and that's another part in this. And I know that folks on social media have wondered about point systems and things like that. But the new deal that was agreed to by PSRA and Pro may insulate these individuals from any kind of repercussion. It might be a deal more like Major League Baseball than we know. And how the officials that are employed went about treating the replacement officials. That's something else that has kind of gone by the wayside. But it might have been beaten with a wet noodle. It might have been a finger wag of authority. It might have been an index finger in the air with a sternly worded, don't you do that anymore kind of a thing, combined with a finger wag of the index. Don't know. Derek, we can only assume there is no accountability for the referees in question. Will, as someone who does that kind of math for a living, it's even more frustrating. And Unc, was there any drop-off in quality with the scab refs? With the replacement officials, I think that there were some that deserve further looks when it comes to first division calls to action. There were some that I think accounted themselves pretty well. But I do wonder how those individuals are looked at / treated by the PSRA, and would they even be considered for the reindeer games going forward? Would they even be considered for the games going forward because of their activity then? So that's where we are. Tom has good news about his Evertonian folks. Andy Bell and George Downing, I think they've already spent close to $200 million toward keeping Everton afloat. It looks like they might be the leaders in the clubhouse. Now, if they can agree with Farhad Mashiri, they might be the ones that end up getting the deal. But any drop-off in quality with the scab refs? Drop-off in quality? I mean, obviously, there were some that had problems navigating the speed of the matches, but I think that there were some that handled themselves very well. I think that accounted themselves very well. But will they be allowed to be a part of the reindeer games? That's the biggest question. And I don't know is the answer. You'll see a lot of the folks that we saw, you'll see them flourishing in the second division, third division, what have you, colleges. But because they were replacement officials, will they even be recognized to get those opportunities if referees and linesmen that we know, if they retire, anybody that's attached to pro in the PSRA, will they step aside? Will those individuals that we saw who deserve deeper looks and second looks early in the season in Major League Soccer, will they be the ones that fill those voids? Don't know. That's another thing to keep an eye on. And to find out about wet noodle purchases, perhaps in New York City, and find out how folks may or may not have been rebuked. So that's all of the quality of the calls more or less unchanged. Some of them really struggled with game management, and that's true. And then there were some that weren't going to take any ish from anybody. So that's where we are. But Pro basically rebuked the VAR in the Josh Cohen save that was credited as a goal after a 3-minute conversation. And for the record, the length of that review wasn't even the longest of the weekend. That wasn't even the longest of the weekend. You had the 10 video reviews during week 18. And in those 10 video reviews, minute 37, minute 25, 222, 127, 333 was the Arriaga handball in Nashville. Minute 16, 242, the RSL Austin penalty kick, the Heinzike handball, went 4 minutes and 34 seconds. Vancouver, Colorado was a minute 27. Atlanta's was 3:07. So Atlanta's review, was only the third longest review of the 10 and was the one that was rebuked by Pro. So as your public service, keep an eye on the 4 names that we talked about that were involved in the LAFC Atlanta incident and the Atlanta Charlotte incident. And what you might want to do just to keep an eye on things, on your social medias, on the 280-character app, set your notifications so you can find out when you end up with news dumps and things like that. So keep an eye out on those things. But know the 3-minute and 7-second discussion that resulted in the call being referred to as a clear and obvious error from a 30-degree angle. That was the decision that was made. But Pro rebuked VAR. So there you go. And Mike made the point of going through all of the moments that we've seen this year. The Hani Mukhtar call, the LAFC call, the Charlotte call, the Philadelphia throw, all of those moments that have occurred in matches that we have seen and been a part of this year. So, food for thought. Going through all the other news this morning, FC Dallas has replaced Nico Estevez with assistant Peter Luchin. That happened yesterday. You want to talk news dump? 3-8-5, 13th out of 14 in the Western Conference. 28, 27, and 29 under Estevez. The third coach to be released this year. Gary Smith, Gonzalo Pineda, Nico Estevez. So Peter Luchin now is taking over on an interim basis with a team that's 3-8-5. Other news going in and around the planet. I know that Tom kind of beat us to the Evertonian news this morning. There's some other stuff that is going on in the Telegraph this morning. It was interesting to see that Tottenham has been accused of taking advantage of the Ukraine war as Shakhtar Donetsk considers legal action. Matt Law with another heavyweight story. Spurs have been accused of taking advantage of the war in Ukraine and acting, quote, like a robber on the road by Chief Executive Serhii Palkin, specifically dealing with the move of Manor Solomon last summer. The Ukraine Peace Summit is going to happen in Switzerland on June 15 and 16. Solomon was under contract to Shakhtar until the end of 23, moved to Spurs on a free last summer after FIFA granted the right to all non-Ukrainian nationals playing in the country to suspend their contracts amid the conflict. Suspension went beyond the end of Solomon's deal with Shakhtar, but Shakhtar Donetsk believed they should have been paid a fee or at least been given a sizable sell-on clause in any future winger move that Solomon may make from Spurs. Following almost a year of talks with Spurs director Rebecca Capelhorn, Shakhtar have ended all negotiations and are considering taking the matter to court, as they've done with Lyon over Mateus Tete, who moved to France on loan, then joined Leicester on loan, for which Palkin claims Lyon received a fee. Palkin, quote, "I'm feeling very bad towards Tottenham. I cannot believe this kind of club with a huge history, not just European level, world level, that they can behave like this. From my point of view, it's not acceptable behavior. They've taken advantage of the war." Obviously, Spurs declined comments. So part of your requested reading would be this article. Palkin compared the way Spurs signed Manor Solomon with the way in which Real Madrid and Corinthians dealt with Shakhtar over similar transfers. We have some players, Vinicius Tobias at Real Madrid, Maicon at Corinthians. Those clubs, they wanted to take our players, but they came to us and said, okay, we can take them for free, but we don't want to play these dirty games. Instead, they offered to pay us for loans. And then one player Palkin's convinced Shakhtar will receive a big fee for this summer is Georgi Sudakov, who's been linked with a number of clubs and is going to play for Ukraine in the European Championships. Last offer they had for Sudakov was 40 million euro. So Serhii Palkin, part of the front office for Shakhtar Donetsk, not happy with Spurs. Scotland have suffered a scare as Robertson limped off from training. So Andrew Robertson picked up a knock. Concern that he had to go off. And Hearts striker Lawrence Shanklin didn't take part in the full session either. Stuart Armstrong returned to training after recovering from a muscle injury, went through an individual program. Thomas Tuchel has ruled himself out of Manchester United despite meeting with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Brighton is on the verge of making Fabian Hertzler the youngest manager ever in the Premier League at the age of 31. Obviously, later in the week, we'll go through all of the Euro stuff. We'll get into all of that. Police have briefed England players amid fears that their homes may be targeted by gangs during the Euro. And in addition to what Tom was talking about with the two big fans of Everton, this past weekend, Chris Bascom mentioned, in addition to Andy Bell and George Downing, it's got the support of Michael Dell. Estimated wealth at £84 billion. Dell's backing is in the form of his family office, which has been established to manage his finances, and Bell and Downing are pushing for that deal. Dell's private investment firm of MSD Partners providing financial support rather than being at the forefront of the bid. Bell and Downing have already committed around £50 million into Everton to represent one of the creditors who 777 failed to repay by that May 31 deadline. And you also have John Textor, who is trying to dislodge himself from Crystal Palace. He's interested in being a partner in Everton. And there are a couple of other folks as well. So it looks like with all of the loans and everything, that it might be a light at the end of the tunnel that is not an oncoming train. So there's that with Everton this morning. And I know that Tom and Ropes and everybody else there hopefully really looking forward to the end of all of our discussion where we're sitting here and we're talking about Everton and going, really? And turning it into almost a topic of the day that you don't want to talk about, but you kind of have to talk about because it's how things are. Tom Heaton's going to join the England squad, by the way. And he will be there for reinforcements and anything else that might be needed as they continue to go forward. Trying to see if there's any other news. I'm trying to see. Let's see. So I've gone through two papers, and let's go ahead and go through gossip, rumor, and innuendo, what to watch, where to watch it, and how to go. And I know that you guys are still talking about the VAR decisions, and we'll definitely get into that discussion before we get out of here again this morning. Everton in talks to sign Armando Broja from Chelsea in a £30 million deal. Ben Jacobs is a very busy man. I would follow him on Twitter at JacobsBen. Wolves have agreed to a deal to sign Rodrigo Gomes from Braga. Arsenal are told they'll have to spend £50 million to sign Douglas Luiz from Aston Villa. Manchester City set to make Phil Foden the highest paid British player in history by raising his salary to £375,000 a week. That's from the three-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. Arsenal and Manchester United remain interested in Bologna's forward Joshua Zirkzee. He's also wanted by AC Milan. Four-letter paper says Bayern Munich have made an opening offer worth about $30 million to Fulham for João Palhinha. I've seen as high as 35. Former Arsenal goalkeeper Jens Lehmann says he's unsure whether current boss Mikel Arteta is the right man to lead the club. Of course. Wrexham co-owner Rob McElhenney has not given up the hope of signing Gareth Bale. I think he's included golf in the deal. We'll see. Welsh club are also in talks with Arthur Okonkwo about a permanent deal after his release from Arsenal. Make that happen. Saudi Pro League club Al Nassr are in talks to sign Wojciech Szczesny from Juve. That's from Fabrizio Romano. Newcastle want to sign another striker this summer. Former Barcelona boss Xavi would like to manage in the Premier League, and I'm sure that the Premier League would like to have Xavi. That would definitely be something that is stared at and loved and admired. Just like, bring the man in. Bring him in. Absolutely bring him in. So with the Euros coming on, yesterday was pretty busy. Today's kind of light. The women's tournament final that involves the Heather O'Reilly coach squad is a part of the women's final at 7 o'clock on the Plus. The men's tournament final that we talked about at 8:30. That is Nani FC and La Bombonera. La Bombonera once again beating our friends at Pasha in the round of 16. That is at 8:30. So you can watch both of those on the Plus. FS2 has two friendlies. The Czech Republic and North Macedonia. That one is at noon. Netherlands and Iceland is at 2:45. So if you want to watch international feeds and be partially freaked out when they're showing you the highlight package without any kind of audio underneath it except the Nat sound, and then sometimes they'll duck out the Nat sound, and you're just kind of wondering what you're staring at if FS2 hasn't gone to commercial. That's what you're going to get today all afternoon from 12 to 2 and from 2:45 to 5 o'clock, basically. So that's what you're going to be getting today as the friendlies continue on the board. Derek feels that if it takes more than 2 minutes to look at a replay, there's nothing clear and obvious. Maybe they should put a time limit on reviews. I second that. Something that we have long discussed. This is what I've always said about it. If you can't find it, if it's clear and obvious, then it should be a clear and obvious thing to sit there and go, bang, 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 we're done. It shouldn't be something where you're sitting there and you're going, we're still looking. Yeah, we'll get back to you. We're still looking on this one. We'll come back to you in a sec. No. That's not how this works. That is not how this works. If you can't find something, I like the idea of maybe minute and a half, 2 minutes. Maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Something like that. That's what I would think about in this case. Give it a time limit. And to be perfectly honest, I have no earthly idea how that was clear and obvious. I really don't. And apparently we will never know unless someone leaks it. Unless someone sits there and says, hey, give this a listen. And it's not something that was manufactured by AI or anything like that. Here's your 3 minutes and 7 seconds. So that's what we're staring at. I love the idea of a minute and a half or 2 minutes. I really do. And I'd love to know how this was clear and obvious. For something from a 30-degree angle, from an 18-yard line slash camera, but we're not going to know. Like I said, unless it's leaked, we're never going to know. This past weekend in Major League Soccer, I know it will. I know it won't surprise you, but there weren't a whole lot of goals on the board, and it was intriguing just to see what the schedule was going to yield in this kind of a situation. You had 4 matches, and you had the sum total of 6 goals. New England beat the Red Bulls 1-0, which is a shock to a lot of folks. But, of course, New York didn't have Forsberg. They didn't have a couple of folks. New England, missing some folks, got a goal from Boateng with about 10 minutes to go to win that one 1-0. Kansas City, at the death, beat Seattle 2-1. So that staves off the conversation, I think, for another week that Peter Vermes would have to have with Peter Vermes. Jordan Morris scored in the 12th. Johnny Russell 7 minutes later. Reed Baker-Whiting gets a red in the 73rd. 12 minutes later, Vargas gets a goal to make it 2-1, and that's your final. So Kansas City gets the win. That match had the most on the weekend, most goals. Minnesota and Dallas. Hassani Dotson scored in the 9th. Frazier scores in the 15th for Dallas. That was it. Legitimately, nothing happened in the final 75 minutes. Dallas gets a draw, and Nico Estevez is looking for work. And then St. Louis and Portland at City Park. Goalless draw. Absolute goalless draw. So that's what you ended up on the weekend. Your standings. New England inches closer and closer to getting out of the dungeon. They're now at 13 points. They're still 2 points out of next to last with Chicago. So what happened with the so Red Bulls end up staying in 4th at 29 points. They have one less win than NYC, so that's why they're in 4th now. In the West was where everything shifts. RSL at 33 points, LAFC at 30, Minnesota at 29. LAG at 28. That's your top 4. Vancouver at 25. Austin at 23. Houston 7th at 22 points with a record of 6-6-4. They played one less match than Colorado, who's 8th. Portland, who is in 9th. Seattle now up to 10th with their 4th win of the year. Still 3 points out of the playoffs. 18 points. 3 wins on the season. That's why they're in 11th. Kansas City is at 14 points. They are now with 1 more match played than Dallas, ahead of Dallas on goal difference and goals scored. Same number of wins. And then Dallas is 13th. San Jose is in 14th at 11 points. They are 3 points away from getting out of the dungeon. So your 4 matches that challenged your fantasy this weekend, challenged my fantasy, and I still lost because I put in 2 keepers that were on international duty and didn't change it in time. Wiley, enjoy City Park. I need a full report. But by the way, for anybody that's going to St. Louis, I will recommend watching the True South St. Louis, Missouri episode before you go, because they give you so many good food ideas to go because of all the different nationalities that are there and their focus is on food and everything. You will come up with, so it's True South on SEC Network, ESPN Plus, wherever you want to find it. True South's St. Louis episode. Before you go to City Park, watch that episode of True South, and you'll get a great handle on where to go eat when it comes to City Park and Atlanta and St. Louis City, SC, those 2. So that's what you're hunting. That's a show for a Monday. We had a lot to talk about. It was Bartimus Prime 19, Bart Keeler, and the Soccer for US POD. That's coming out later this week. We got to talk about that game and all the pitchforks and tiki torches that are attached. Also got to catch up with Ryan Marcano and Christian Wegland from Oglethorpe. You might know, like I said, Ryan from Oglethorpe. You might know Christian from the Revs and Oglethorpe, but we got to catch up with 2 Stormy Petrels who got to have a bit of a run with Pasha Luxury in TST. It was great to find out what was like for them to be a part of it, which is just a crazy tournament on a bunch of different fronts. And then obviously catching up with Pro Rebuking VAR. But once again, keep an eye on those 4 individuals. Center F in both matches, VAR in both matches, and keep an eye on their assignments going forward in Major League Soccer. So that'll be part of our homework going forward. Back at it again tomorrow for 9:05. We'll go through everything else that's on our minds. And once again, remember, Wednesday, Tyler Pilgrim, Dylan Butler. Thursday, Nico Moreno. Friday, looks like Bart's going to be joining us in hour number 2 to find out what happened in his brain with the Brazil friendly and hopefully catch up with our friends at Beyond Goals, get you ready for Atlanta and Houston, which means I need to catch up with Glenn Davis. Also later this week, on the network, we're going to have a 1v1 or it might be a 2v1 with the new unified team that is underway with South Georgia Tormenta. So we'll catch up with them and about the genesis of it, what it was like. They got the win this past weekend. I think it was against the USL Academy All-Stars team, but great win for them, great way to start things off. But we want to find out more about it, find out about the why and the where and the particulars and what it means to that particular part of the state and to the Tormenta community on the whole. So it's going to be busy. And later this week, hopefully, we'll be able to catch up with our friends at the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation. Katie Smith is their new women's coach. And we're going to find out how someone who played and is coaching at Pittsburgh State in Kansas got plugged into the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation. So we've got some 1v1s and some 2v1s that we're getting into. And remember, we'll be at Lee and White Friday afternoon to get you ready for the Euros. We'll be there, and I'm going to wear my Andorra jersey as we get you ready for all of that as well. Tomorrow, I will be in a hotel room in Auburn, Alabama. The boss and I are going on a date tonight. And so I will be in a hotel room in Auburn, Alabama. Nothing will change, just the scenery. But we'll be back at it at 9:05 Eastern time, and we'll take you through everything. This Saturday is very, very busy. It is literally Houston, and this is all Saturday night, by the way. Atlanta United, Houston Dynamo, and then you have your choice. Georgia Impact, Apotheos, and Decatur FC. They're all going on at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So you can be in any one of those environments and catch an eye on all of those other environments through your favorite devices. So it's going to be a very, very busy weekend across the board. here at SDH. So for everybody here, thanks to the guests for dropping by. Thanks to you for dropping by, as you always do. Be back at it again tomorrow morning at 9:05. So in a little less than 22 hours from Auburn, Alabama, we're going to talk stuff and anything that's on the table. So Mucha Platiel, play it safe. And since it's the end of the show, that means I get to do this. Play it safe, everybody. Mucha Platiel. See you in less than 22.